Good morning. Right, so not a great night last night actually, because I'm on the campaign trail and I'm trying to get my message out in terms of the environment and everything else. So yesterday I spent half an hour doing this film on if we had a green revolution, the price of energy would fall and we'd all be much better off. Okay, so from then I listened to the Rory Stewart and the Alistair Campbell podcast when they interviewed Kwasi Kwarteng. They spoke about Liz Truss. They spoke about the complete disaster of that. And I almost got the impression when I was listening to Kwasi Kwarteng that he was like this really, really clever guy, won university challenge, stuffed up in terms of the economy, didn't quite get it, and didn't really take any responsibility for what had actually happened. But also what I'm actually quite shocked at is that none of these main players, including Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell, Kwasi Kwarteng, Liz Truss, right, they never take the environment into account. They never really ask the big questions of society. Okay, so when I was young, I used to go swimming in a river called the River Wye, which is in Hereford. Now, if I'd had time, I would have gone up there and swam in that river again. I wouldn't be very keen on the idea because it's literally like swimming in a sea of snot, right? All the fish have died, it's heavily polluted. What's happened is loads of multinationals have come in, sort of set up or asked farmers to franchise out loads of chicken farms. And obviously the chickens produce loads of chicken shit, loads of antibiotics, and then all of that chicken shit goes into the river and has basically killed the River Wye. Okay, so what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to go down to the River Deben and I'm going to go for a quick swim then, which is also polluted, but not as heavily polluted as the River Wye, right? Because all the chemicals come off the land and they pollute the river, right? So this is what's happening. This is what's going on, and it is a big story in some circles. So with the River Deben, there's some really cool people who are going out there and testing the waters and everything else because they're not really relying on the Environmental Agency to do it for them. And anyway, the Environmental Agency isn't really allowed to speak out against it because otherwise they might lose their jobs. Right, so it becomes quite a complex process. What you really need is whistleblowers within that industry. So I'm going to swim in there just for a bit of a stunt. So that's just one part of it. But when I'm doing all the reading around the actual subject matter, right, it does appear to me that actually organic farming produces so much better food. It is so much more nutritious. And actually, if we can get the whole industry going, it produces food at a much higher profit for the farmer. So really what we need to move away is from this big industrialized model of how agriculture should be. And then we would be producing better food. Okay, it would be more expensive, but maybe not that much more expensive. And there are ways around that problem because if you have a green revolution, right, then you have much cheaper energy. So everybody has cheaper energy. So in a sense, that's giving people more money to spend on decent food. And if we raise their incomes from what I was talking about yesterday, because we're going to shift out productive capacity, so therefore we can run the economy at higher levels of demand, then people will actually be able to afford really, really good food. But we're asking for a complete culture change. What I don't get when Rachel Reeve was being interviewed yesterday on a podcast is this really radical idea about how you can do things. So she was telling the story that when she grew up, right, and this is a story that she actually tells all of the time, that her mum and dad divorced, right, her mum was a primary school teacher, so they weren't really, really hard up, but they weren't well off, certainly. And what her mum used to do, she used to check her bank balance every month to check all the money that was coming in and that was coming out. So she's really hinting that from a very young age, right, her economics is really, really strong in the fact that she will try and balance the books. But that's maybe how personal debt works. It's not how government debt works. So I just like this story because it sounds like she's trying to portray the image of trust me and we'll be safe in my hands. And we'll continue along the same path that everyone else has also followed. Right. So as an independent, I'm looking for something that's completely different. Right. I've already spoken about the Green Revolution, but also I think I think we're going to come across the same thing in farming as well, that the organic produce is just much, much, far, far better to produce. It's far better for us, it's far better for the environment, it's far better for our rivers and everything else. But at the moment, we're in these grip of these major companies, these major multinationals, like the oil industries, like the food industry, like Big Pharma, who are just making extortionate profits. So they don't want the system to change. But actually, if we did change around to the organic way of doing things, we would all actually be much better off, because we'd all be much healthier. And we'd all be able to pay each other more money, because we would have cheaper energy and better food. So our productivity would rise up, because we'd actually be much better off. And how do you get that message across to people? It's just a really, really difficult thing to do. And then, so when I got up this morning, like a bit low yesterday, woke up really early this morning at about 4 o'clock, didn't really sleep that well, because I was just like, how on earth do you get this message across? And then there's this other YouTube that I randomly came across, was how to profit from 1 acre. And it's this farmer in Uganda. And she's completely extraordinary, right? Because what she is doing is she's growing like amazing food in a tiny, tiny space, right? So I've just listened to George Monbiot, who's talking about livestock and how bad livestock is for the planet, and it creates a third of the pollution, and it's wrecking all our rivers, including the River Wye, which is what I used to swim in. And he's saying that even if we have organic fed cattle, right, there's still going to be too much methane produced. Okay, so I've listened to his whole talk and I get it, right, that basically that we're just going to destroy the ecological environment. However, right, I suddenly look at it, and he hasn't looked at Emma's farm in Uganda, because in Uganda she's growing this beautiful organic grass in 5 days. And then with that, she's feeding the pigs, all from 1 acre. And that's like this just like this incredible story. So, okay, so the pigs can't roam around as much, but they also quite like the pig dung as well, because what happens with the pig dung, then she sets it under a cover, and then the maggots come and eat it all up, and then she gets loads and loads, the maggots laid seeds, or someone laid seeds on it, and then you get loads of maggots, and then this feeds all of the chickens. So she's built this completely circular system, which also actually produces a lot of meat in a very, very small space. There must be a bit of methane coming out, but maybe not that much. But she also, from the dung, she also collects the methane, and she uses that for cooking purposes. So here is this farmer who has completely changed the way in which it works. And also on this farm, she's also set up a little school, which is it's like the coolest school that you can ever see, because the little kids are acting like scientists. So they learn it from the academic books, but they're also learning on the job as well about how you can make enormous sums of money out of this. So this is the most extraordinary idea. So this idea has to get out there, because if we don't, and I'm going to be on my bike soon, cycling to this place, if we don't do that, then what we're going to end up with is polluted rivers, farmland that we can no longer use. So actually, I think the point I'm trying to make, and this should be studied, is that small farms are far, far better than bigger farms, right? Because Emma has just proven it in her farm in Uganda. Wow. This is extraordinary stuff. So this needs to be adopted. Right. So maybe I was down last night, listened to loads of different podcasts. Yeah. And then I'm sort of getting a feel for it. The other big one I learned yesterday was, which I spoke about in my 30-minute video, was that with the energy system, right, if the government comes in as the major player and spends 500 billion quid on our green energy system, then we'd be in, right? We would completely change the way energy is constructed, and we'd all have cheaper energy. And as I said yesterday, it could all be owned by local democracies. Right, so then we sort out the food system, we sort out the energy system, and then we save the planet. Wow, that is a massive message. Right, so probably in about an hour's time, you'll see me jumping in the River Deben. It's going to be freezing cold, which is polluted, probably better than jumping into the River Wye, which is really heavily polluted. Okay, that would actually be quite dangerous, but it would have been better in the River Wye. But I don't think I'll be able to persuade Katie, my wife, to drive all the way up to Hereford to look at it. But at some stage, I will do that. Right. Many, many thanks indeed. Have a great day. Bye.